Okay, so ways to accept input from user. So first was what? Request param, right? That we have done. Now today we will do request body and path variable. Request body, and third will be what? Path variable. Okay. Now let's start with request. So request body, what happens is, if I want to add an employee, so I can pass the entire object of that employee as a JSON object. So you have to give curly brackets. Then this should be this is the object we are passing. So this should be the property of that class. So roll number. So by default roll number we are giving as auto increment, right? So you can skip the roll number if you want. And then s name. So there's a colon in between. If you observe, between the key and the value we have a colon. Okay, and the key will always be in double quotes. Value, if it is an integer, you can skip the double quotes or you can give the double quotes. No, it is up to you. If the value is an integer value, so better you give the double quotes. So you have a proper format. Okay, then you have email. And comma. Each property is separated by a comma. And as there is no other property after this, you can close the bracket. So we can pass this entire object, entire JSON object, okay, to the post function instead of giving different query parameters. Okay, so how do we do that? So for that, let's create one more controller to add an employee using request body. Okay, so go to controller.
Sir, screen visible.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just make a clone of this. Now I will not take all these arguments. Okay, I will not take all these arguments. I'll put it over here only after this. So I'll keep this method like this. Okay, and I will say add student by request body. And now here we will just take one argument, that will be request body, and directly we will take the direct object of that class. So request control space bar, it is processing request body. Okay, and now which class object are we taking? Student. And what should be the name of the object? Student. So now whatever I pass from the front end, this will directly go in this object, and then we can directly send this object to the service. Okay, directly we can send this object to the service. What is the employee service name? Okay, student service, right? And then we have a method over there, right, which accepts the object of the student class. Previously we had made object. So directly you can call, and which object will be passed? And record inserted, and this will return us that object which we have added. So return. Okay, make changes. So now we are reusing this add student object of the service class. So the add student object takes a student as argument and saves that to the database. So the controller part is changed. Let's see if the okay, API has been installed. Let's try to test this API. Okay, application is starting. Application started. Let's go to the API. You'll see my API dog homepage.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we go to our application and we create new. So we had the post endpoint, right? So I'll just copy that. I will just copy this endpoint and make changes over here. Control C and create a new one. Okay, which is a post request, right? So post, give this, and what did we say? Add student. So we can pick it up from here. Pick it up from the controller. Okay, give the same name over here. Add student by request body. Okay, save. Run. And now when I will send the request, I will go to the body and I am sending the data in which format? Which format are we sending the data? This
JSON.
this data. So I'll copy this from here and put it over here in JSON format. Okay, just make sure that the format is correct. Okay, so you have lots of JSON editors. So let me show you some JSON editors. So if you need any help in creating the JSON, then you can use these. So just go and search for JSON editor online here. You have many good. Yeah, this is good one. JSON editor online is, this is good one. So what you have to do is just pass whatever data you want to send over here. Okay, and it will just check the validity of that data. So here, see, I have put, now see everything is correct. Now if I just remove something, it will start showing error. You see, so it is,
Yes, sir.
yeah. So you can test your JSON over here that it is a valid JSON or not. But now we just have to check for the, are these correct? Roll number, S name, email, and age. Are these the correct properties? So just verify that one from your entity class. So what we have, roll number, S name, email, and age, correct. Roll number, S name, add row, and roll number we are giving auto increment, right? So you can skip that. So while sending that request, you can skip the roll number if you don't want to give. Even if you just give this much is sufficient. Okay, so if Alice is already there, then we don't want to confuse whether this was added by us or whether it was added by some previous API. So let's try to give unique data, and now then do a send. So if you do a send, then it should return you the response of the same object which got added. Okay, so it returns. So by default it auto incremented the roll number to 4 and then added that George value. Got it?
Yes,
Oh.
sir.
This was the second type of how we can pass input to the user. Okay, and let's say if the third way in which you can pass the input is to the path variable. So this is your endpoint, right? So you can add that variable to the endpoint itself. Okay, so over here. So now I'll show you how we can do that. So normally why we use this path variable is because APIs have different versioning. So see, our APIs, we are using which version of the API? We are using V1 version of the API. So normally we also have the version 2, version 3. So we can pass the version as a path variable. See over here. But in this case, let's try to just show you a demo of how we can pass the path variable. So let's copy this same, and in the path variable I will try to pass the details of the employee number, name and email. Okay, so how we pass is we pass like this. So what was our S name? So I'll pass the S name slash if I want to pass multiple path variables I can pass them as. So S, we have to pass the S name, the email and the age. These three things we have to pass, right? So these are my path variables. So here I will say at the rate what request body will make way for P, just type PATH control space bar path variable. Now the first path variable, what is the name of the first path variable? S name, and that will be used in the program by this variable. So in the program I will call this S name as this S name. Okay, and we have multiple path variable, right? So I'll put enter over here so that you all can see all the variables. Then comma. Now take the next path variables. So I'm mapping this S name to this S name. These both can be different also. And path variable of this email, I'll take a string email. Okay, and then path variable of age I can take as int age. So these three are my Java variables, and these three are mapping of my path variable. Now there is no third variable, so I close this. Okay, and now what we will do is now we need to construct a student object with these objects. So just like we had the query request param, we can use that same logic. So it is just a way of taking input, right? So this logic remains more or less the same. Okay, so you, and then once you have done that, you can, these lines are coming because we are not returning. We are telling that we return a student object, but we haven't returned a student object yet. So now we can tell that we are returning the student object. What happened? Add student. Okay, duplicate method. Okay, so now we have created the method. For this we will create a API endpoint. Okay, just copy this from here so that we can reuse it. New API. Fetch the endpoint name from the controller. Okay, and just take the entire stuff. While passing the arguments, no need to give the curly brackets. When we are passing it, no need to give the curly bracket. So so while passing, no need to give the curly bracket. So just give the S name. So GH. Okay, so now we'll give the Henry. The email of Henry at gmail.com. Now I hope this at the rate doesn't mess up with the URL. And 23. So like this you can pass the path variables. You need to give them over here. Say add student by path variable. So connection. Why didn't I start the application? I did not start the application. Okay. So application is starting. Then we can do the run once the application starts. If you want this to start faster, then disable that query. So it is taking time to show the queries over here. You can disable that option. So I come here and I do a send, and method not allowed. What happened? Yeah, am I using? It's a post mapping, right? What mapping it is?
Oh, sorry.
And here what are we using?
Yeah.
So it is telling method not allowed. Go to edit and change. Yeah, no, go and run this. Okay, added, and it has taken the details from here. So if I go and change the details over here, it will I for IN. Okay, let me add the employee with I also. IN at gmail.com. Let's say he's 27 years, and I do a send. It adds me that also. Got it? So how we can accept input for user in the three different ways? By path variable.
Yeah.
Path variable is same like most request path as a request body. Okay, and as your request params. Correct? Makes sense? So now let's try to use this.